Why we're kind of doing this lecture series was really because we're all feeling a little bit sad just being stuck inside, and we can't be in the mountains, so we'll be in them virtually. But also because we really believe that at Climbing 7 Summits that climbers who are well educated, well prepared, and know kind of what to expect and feel that they've done their homework are generally really successful climbers. So that's why we've done this and put it on. This week we're focusing on the summit bid in itself and the summit day. So to get you guys up to date with who we are, you know me from last week. I'm the moderator and the general manager of Climbing the 7 Summits. Oh, sorry, I went a bit fast there. We've got Mike, who doesn't need any introduction, is the owner of Climbing the 7 Summits, has stood on top of Everest 6 times himself, and is the author of that Climbing the 7 Summits guidebook. And so Mike is with us. Then we have Arnette, again, someone who needs absolutely no introduction. I hope you've all been watching on his virtual Everest blog at the moment, doing a virtual climb, which has been really cool. He's a very famous Everest blogger, keeps us all up to date during the season, and has also climbed K2 and Everest himself, and has a mountaineering coaching business. So helps people kind of with all forms of their ascent and getting prepared and getting in game. So Alan's with us. Then we have Tendi. Tendi is a 13 times Everest Summiteer, and he is our Sirdar at Climbing the 7 Summits. And a Sirdar basically means like the chief Sherpa in my mind, leads our entire Sherpa team, and he's a lead guide. So those guys again, obviously Mike, I just quickly wanted to ask you guys a quick few questions before we get started. In the summit bid itself, if there's one bit of advice on safety on summit day, Mike, what kind of advice would you give your climbers?
Yeah, I'd say the most important thing you can do is quite simple, actually. It's just eat and drink. And that goes for any mountain out there. You know, especially on Everest summit day, it's cold, it's uncomfortable. People don't want to stop to eat and drink, but it's absolutely crucial to do so. And there are a lot of different strategies for that. One thing I do is I keep some food and water warm here in my pockets so I can get to them without having to take off my pack. But if you eat and drink, you'll climb strong. If you don't, you're really gonna struggle on summit day. And I'd say the other piece of safety advice that I'd give you is, you know, always stay clipped in. If you're coming unclipped and exposing yourself to a fall, it's gonna be dangerous. So just stay clipped in at all times.
Awesome. Okay, and moving over to you, Alan. I'll just share my screen, make sure I'm sharing my screen right. Alan, you know, we talk a lot about training and preparation, and we can go through the route together, but you know, mindset and mental preparation, we're just touching on that before we started. Can you tell us a little bit about like how important, how critical that is that to summit success?
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having me on this panel. This is really great. I love the first episode, and I see people from all over the world saying hi. So hi back. You know, I think the mental side, you often hear people will say, you know, once you have the physical ante, you know, you're up to the physical level. And by the way, I don't call it the best shape of your life. I call it Everest shape. Because you can be in the best shape of your life, like I was in 2002, but I wasn't in Everest shape, and I had a horrible time and didn't summit. I sucked. So, but when I went back in 2011, there's another part that changed for me, and that was the mental toughness side of it. When looking back, when I tried it 3 times in 2002, 3, and 8, and I turned myself around at that, Mike and Tendi, you know it well, it's that big old rock right underneath the balcony. And, you know, where you go up, you make a right-hand turn. And yeah, mental toughness is just knowing how deep you can dig and, you know, how much reservoir you have in your body, but you also have to be smart. And I think that's why climbing with trusted guides and trusted Sherpas really makes all the difference in the world. But mental toughness is really the key, I think, to summiting.
Awesome. And speaking of those amazing Sherpa, Tendi, you've climbed Everest 13 times. You've been around, you know, commercial expeditions with lots of Western and foreign and international climbers. What does Everest mean to the Sherpa people? Have we got Tendi? Hold on, let me unmute you, Tendi. There you go, off you go.
Namaste, everybody. Good to see you on this webinar program today. Really, really nice to be here. And thanks, Caroline and Mike, for giving us this chance. Yeah, such a beautiful way to spend our quarantine in Nepal. Everest is a very, very special mountain for us here in Nepal. Of course, it's special in the world, but it's particularly in Nepal and among Sherpa community. The Mount Everest is really, really, really special. It's because of, of course, it's the world's highest mountain, but also because it's mainly the sacred mountain among the Sherpa community. And we have so much respect to this mountain, also because it's one of the main income source for Nepal and a great income source for the Sherpa community in Nepal. Oh, and if I talk about our relations, the Sherpa's relations with the foreigners, since 1953, when Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay Sherpa, they summited Everest, which is 7 years ago, right today.
Yeah, happy Himalaya Day, everyone.
Yeah, today is our Everest Day because it was the first, the first summit of Everest was on the 29th of May, 1953. So since 1953, when Sherpa and Tenzing Sherpa and Edmund Hillary summited Everest, I think they kind of set up a tradition of climbing Sherpa and a Westerner together, and they set up these traditions. They set up this culture, and today we are following these traditions and these cultures with respect and honor. And we always have a very, very good relations with our foreigner friends.
Yeah, it's definitely that respect. Thanks, Tendi. Cool. So, and then our last panelist is Rex. He's a Everest summiteer and a 7 summiter. He actually was the youngest Aussie to climb Everest, and totally it's his fault that I'm even involved in this conversation and have anything to do with mountaineering. He is my annoying older brother as well, and in owner of Evolve, which is corporate training and leadership using adventure as a metaphor for corporate learning. Rex, Everest obviously set up your entire career. How influential was reaching the top?
For me, it was incredibly important, mainly because it was a childhood dream. You know, I always read the books, I saw the documentaries. I loved rock climbing, I loved mountaineering, and for me, Everest represented not only a mountain that was the ultimate challenge for me, but also something that I aspired to do since a very young age. I was very unfortunate to have my sister on that expedition, and I was pretty fortunate to have Mike.
And that's pretty nepotistic, isn't it? I've got you on here.
But it was incredible, and it did shape my career. I do now keynote on the mountain, and I have developed a bunch of corporate training programs in relation to climbing Everest, and so it does change your life when you stand on the summit of this mountain. It's an incredible experience, and it's a humbling experience, and it grounds you in many ways. So yeah, it's if you want to take it on, I would suggest do the training, do the right preparation, and plan and prepare and go for it.
Nice, awesome. Okay, guys, let's get into it. We wanted to do a quick little bit of Everest trivia. So let me get this poll started. Basically, it's who do you think has the most summits of Everest? So a little bit of Everest trivia to celebrate Himalaya Day. Just watching all those votes come in. You guys are quick, that's good. Okay, just 10 more seconds to get your votes in. Okay, let's see what you all think. Sharing the results, and the winner is, Mike, do you want to tell us? Or maybe we should ask Tendi. Tendi, who is the person that has the most summits of Everest? Hold on, I'll unmute you. Tendi, are you there? Oh, maybe it's not working. Maybe Tendi's not working. Hold on. What about Mike? Mike, Or is it my computer? I hope it's not my computer. Anyway, the person who has the most Everest summits is Kami Rita Sherpa. Okay, so is everyone okay? Is my audio and visual working all right? If you guys want to chuck it in the chat box, I just want to make sure we had a little bit of a hiccup there. So this is how everybody voted. So Kami Rita came away, and you are correct in that one. He does have the most summits. Cool. I'll stop sharing. So just to, you know, how this works, generally we will share some video with you, and there's lots of the answers to your questions are actually in the video. So try and listen carefully. And if you do have any questions, jump on that chat box. That's where we're moderating them. We'll probably won't be able to get to them all as we go, because obviously there's a lot going on, but we will get to them at the end. So let's head back into the Himalaya for this week again. Get you all feeling like you're in the mountains. The Himalaya, the highest points on our planet. Born from a mighty collision of tectonic plates so powerful it pushed the Earth above the clouds. The centre point, Mount Everest. Standing at 8,850 metres, it is both spectacular and formidable. It attracts mountaineers from all over the world as the ultimate challenge. These are goal-driven people willing to commit themselves to the dedication that it takes to earn the privilege of standing for a few minutes on the summit, looking out over our world. Not to be underestimated, Mount Everest is not just an enormous physical feat, it is also a mental test of perseverance. So what separates those who succeed from those who fail? Strategy, experience, teamwork, vision, execution. Everest. It has the power to transform ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. Do you have what it takes? Okay, team, do you feel like you are now sufficiently in the Himalaya? Last week, we went through the route in detail. So we broke it down into each leg. And if you did miss out on last week, just email me and I'll find you a sneaky recording. But we went through the route in detail. We did the first leg to Camp 1. We looked at the Western Coombe, past Camp 2, and then we looked, you know, the leg up the Lhotse face, and then of course up to the summit in a little bit of detail. But today, that's the leg we're going to be doing together: the balcony, the South Summit, the Hillary Step, and the summit, and finding some strategies that work, and some things to be aware of. So that's where we're heading today. So before we get started, I've got another fun poll. I want to get an idea from all of you guys what you think is the hardest part of the summit bid. So I'm just going to start that poll now. What do you think is the hardest part of the summit bid? Is it passing people, managing the cold? Is it your oxygen management, or the Hillary Step? So I'll give you another 15 seconds to finish the poll. Okay, awesome. And again, like this is, so I'm going to end it there, and I'll share the results with you. So it is really interesting because it's a subjective answer. So I might actually ask our panelists quickly, you know, Alan, let's start with you. What do you feel is the hardest thing on summit day out of those options?
I think it's just staying focused and remembering your purpose and why you're there. Because I often say there's 1,000 reasons to turn around and only one to keep going. And if you don't know what that one reason is, then it's just too easy to let any of those things get in your way and start playing with your head.
Oh, what an awesome answer. And I'll throw off to you, Tendi. What do you think? You've done it 13 times. What's traditionally the hardest part of the summit bid for you? Oh, hold on. I'll unmute you, Tendi. Can everyone hear Tendi or see Tendi? Oh, well, we'll give him a second to come back. Rex, what do you think is the hardest bit?
I'm with Alan. Mental strength is key, and being able to push yourself beyond what you think is physically possible is all up here. I think it's 60% mental strength, 40% physical strength, but also I would vote, just as everyone has on this call, oxygen management is also critical, making sure you know that system, you're comfortable at that system, and that you feel like you can manage that without having to worry about it. And if you can do that, then you should be good. And it's up there, passing people. You're going to meet crowds. Just know you're going to meet crowds. You have to manage that. You have to be patient as well.
Awesome. And have we got Tendi? Tendi, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back, Didi.
You've done it 13 times. What, out of those things, what do you think is the hardest part of Summit Day?
Yeah, usually on the Summit Day, that's obviously, sometimes quite many people, which is quite many, sometimes there's many people and it's, very important to manage those kind of traffic. So, yeah, I would say passing people could be sometimes challenging. So you need to be focused on your safety, how to pass people easily, as long as you can pass the other peoples, because there are climbers who are pretty slow and there are climbers who want to go faster. So I usually always pass people. So we have like our safety lines between me and my clients and the Sherpas, and we have to find a right place to skip the peoples. And so at that time, it's really important to focus to pass people carefully.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, Mike, you touched on that earlier when you gave that safety advice that, passing people and not clipping off. Have you got anything? What do you think is the hardest part on Summit Day? You've done it 6 times.
Personally, it's a little bit of all those things. If you're staying focused, if you're not being lazy, you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's, managing all those things will allow you to get to the summit. If you're, if you let your guard down, if you start getting cold and don't deal with that immediately, if you're not being safe and passing people well and safely, if you're not staying on top of your oxygen system and maybe chipping the ice off it or making sure the valves don't freeze, that can become an issue as well. So it's really just not being lazy and, being proactive and dotting your I's, crossing your T's.
Yeah, that kind of preventative measure, exactly. Making sure you get on top of stuff as soon as it arises. Cool, yep. Awesome. Well, that's really interesting. I really like doing that little poll. So I'm going to stop sharing that and let's get into it, shall we? The journey to the balcony. So the first leg that we're going to do together is from the South Col up to the balcony. So you can see a little graphic there of the bit that we're about to watch. To give you an edge on your preparation, we're going to break down your summit bid in detail and give you a few simple strategies for success and address some of the most frequently asked questions. From the South Col, your summit day begins the night before, with the first leg up to the balcony.
You leave the South Col in the dark, and exactly when you leave the South Col depends on the route conditions and how much traffic there is that day. You may leave anywhere from 8 p.m. to, say, 1 a.m. It's a pretty surreal experience. It feels like you're walking on the moon. And the first half an hour to 45 minutes is really just flat walking on a big ice plain before you start kicking back into the steeper slopes of the triangular face. And the triangular face is just kind of a face leading up to the balcony before you really get into the steeper pitches. And the triangular face is generally snow. Some of the drier years, you may have some rock steps in there, a bit of scree. You can even get a bit of rock fall sometimes on the triangular face. But in general, it's a nice, easy snow slope. If quite a few people have climbed before you, you get a nice staircase going up to the balcony. Typically it takes 3 to 4 hours to get to the balcony. And the balcony is really your first big landmark for the day, summit day on Everest. You've reached the balcony because it's the only kind of flat, reasonable place to take a break on that first stretch. You'll see a lot of headlamps there, a lot of people regrouping, getting some food, some water, changing out oxygen bottles. You might spend 10 or 15 minutes there, grab a quick pack of goo, some chocolate, hammer some water before you're off again. But it really is a great place to stage and kind of rest the legs a little bit before attacking the upper mountain on summit day. You get into the steeper pitches from there.
Awesome. So we're now well and truly climbing. We're underway on our first leg. Alan, you mentioned just earlier that this was actually, those rock benches were where you turned around. Was that correct?
Right. At about 8,700 meters, something like 8,300 meters. Yeah.
Yeah. And how did you find that stretch coming up there?
Between the col and the balcony?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so I turned around at the same spot that I call it my big favorite rock, and you can substitute whatever F word you want for favorite. But because I got there and I turned myself around because I basically knew I could go higher, but I didn't know if I could go lower. And so I made the choice to save my life. Because if I would have kept on going, I was going so slow. Mike, I love the way you say it's a nice, easy snow slope. Well, that's not what my experience was. And so it took me almost 7 hours to get there, twice as long as it did when I finally summited in 2011. I found the crowds to be really difficult because you were just going, just you had right there behind somebody. And if somebody stopped in front of you, then, just basically held you up because it was like a one-way road. Clipped into the fixed line. I found it very tiring. Also, leaving the South Col, I made a huge mistake the first time, and I went way too fast. And I found myself hyperventilating 15 minutes out of camp, and that set the tone for the rest of that attempt. I was just out of gas. I couldn't breathe. I had just, made every mistake in the book.
Yeah, that pace is so important. And speaking of leaving the South Col, Mike, one of the questions we get asked all the time is what dictates the time that you leave the South Col?
The main two factors are weather and other climbers. So, if it's a really busy day, typically you want to get out earlier. That you may have some delays with the traffic there. So if it's a really busy day, get out earlier. And it used to be, Rex and I were up there on the same summit day, and I think we left maybe midnight or 1 a.m. Those times have moved up. Now a lot of people leave between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. just for that reason, to kind of beat the traffic, to get up and through some of the more technical bottlenecks before the crowds get there. So the other people climbing is kind of the most important reason, but also weather. If there's weather rolling in late the next day, then obviously you want to get up and get down early. Or the beauty of this is we've got really specific weather forecasts these days. So it may be that it's windy at the South Col at that moment, so you push back the time that you leave by a little bit, knowing that better weather is coming slightly later in the day. So really the number of climbers and the weather that you're going to be seeing on summit day.
Awesome. And then we're going to quickly move on. I am very cognizant of the time, guys. Sometimes we do run a bit over because we love having these chats. So hopefully you don't all have to run away. But I'll try and keep things moving as best we can, but we will come back to some of those great questions as well at the end. And I wanted to just quickly touch on some of the hazards on summit day.
The most common hazards on Everest Summit Day are freezing injuries, issues with the oxygen system, and exposure. The most common of those being cold injuries, whether it's freezing the corneas of your eyes or freezing your your fingers and toes. So these are things you really need to look out for and you need to preempt. We spend a lot of time at base camp talking about freezing injuries to make sure it's not an issue on summit day for our teams. You know, there's a lot you can do to prepare for this. We spend a lot of time at base camp with our teams talking about freezing injuries and managing the oxygen systems and everything else so that you're prepared for summit day, you know what to do. And if you manage yourself well, a lot of these issues can be avoided. So an ounce of prevention goes a long way. And you know, basically the key is to avoid any cold issues. If you start getting cold, let someone know or stop and take care of it. You can swing your hands, swing your feet, warm back up. If your eyes are getting cold, put the goggles on or glasses on to protect your eyes, and you can avoid any issues on summit day.
Awesome. So now we're going to do the journey all the way from the balcony where we left off up to the South Summit.
The stretch from the balcony to the South Summit is a beautiful stretch of climbing, but it tends to catch people off guard. You've heard of the Hillary Step, but few people have heard of the Tenzing Step. The Tenzing Step is what we refer to as a series of rock benches below the South Summit. And in a snowy year, the route may dogleg around to the right, and it may not be a big deal, but in a drier year, you may have to climb those rock benches, and it can be quite challenging and take some time. It's a bit tricky. You just need to focus on staying slow, keeping your heart rate low, and you know, breathing a lot of oxygen as you get up those benches. Once you're past that, it's still steep, consistently steep to the South Summit, but it's more snow climbing, so it's a lot easier to get into a rhythm. So, you know, the Tenzing Step might catch you off guard, but once you're past that, it's relatively easy climbing to the South Summit. That stretch usually takes 2 to 3 hours, and the sun often starts coming up in that stretch. And when it does, you can look back behind you and see just beautiful views of Makalu and some of the other peaks in the Himalayas, and that's kind of that quintessential view looking down the summit ridge that you may have seen in the Everest IMAX film or something like that.
Awesome. So let's have a little chat about that stretch. Mike, I'm going to start with you. We had a question come in on the email actually about how heavy your pack is, what you're kind of carrying and changing over oxygen bottles. How many bottles do you use? Who carries it? Stuff like that.
Yeah, so you know, the climbers will only be carrying one bottle at a time. Each climber is typically carrying with climbing with a personal Sherpa. The personal Sherpa will have the rest of their bottles. And when it's time to change out a bottle, they'll grab an extra bottle from the Sherpa. And, you know, a bottle might be 10 pounds. So with the pack and a bit of extra water and food and stuff like that, your pack may be 15 pounds. But, you know, it's important to remember ounces turn into pounds up there. So you want to keep your pack absolutely as light as you can. And in terms of trading out the oxygen bottles, most people will use, say, 4 bottles on summit day, 1 from the South Pole up to the balcony. You can change there, another one up to the South Summit, change there, another one to the summit, change there, and that'll get you all the way back down to the South Pole.
Awesome. And Tendi, just talking a little bit more about, if we've still got Tendi, I hope we do, talking a little bit about the Sherpa team there and how you're kind of managing the Sherpa team. You know, we do have that one-on-one on the summit bid where every climber is paired with a Sherpa. But there's also Sherpa at the South Col, staged for rescues. Tell us just quickly about the team that you're managing up there.
Yeah, in our Everest program, basically we have a 1:1 Sherpa ratio to clients, and that's our normal program. And so this Sherpa will help clients on the summit day to carry their oxygen, and of course the clients will carry 1 bottle of oxygen, and then and maybe some of his snacks and water. But Sherpa will help you carry your personal the rest of the oxygen bottles, and also the Sherpa will help you know, give you a company during the whole climb, just like you know, looking after your personal safety as well, and changing the safety carabiners, because when you're climbing at night with the down suits and oxygen masks on, it's a kind of tough. So when you have a Sherpa on your side, it's always very helpful. And so yeah, 1:1 Sherpa, it's a very good. And besides that, there are climbers who use like extra oxygen bottles. So for that, we have like an extra Sherpa to carry that extra oxygen. And that's always very, very helpful. So that way we have now 2 Sherpa helping a client. And so 1 Sherpa fully focusing on just carrying the oxygens, the extra oxygens, and another Sherpa fully focused on also carrying oxygen, but also at the same time, he will be looking after the client's safety and condition more closely. And we have, at the climbing the 7 summits, we have an extra Sherpa, what we call a backup Sherpa at South Col. And I found this really, really important, because we choose, depending on the size of the team, which is either 2 or 3 very strong Sherpa backup and South Col, which is at the last camp of Everest. So this Sherpa will stay at South Col, just get, you know, stand by there in case we need help on our summit push, or on the way down to South Col after we summit. So like if we need any help, then this Sherpa backup can come up quickly with the necessary things like water and food and things like that. Otherwise, otherwise when we get down to South Col from summit, everybody's quite exhausted, very happy, but very exhausted as well. So having a strong Sherpa backup at South Col is always so helpful, because they make the water and juice, tea, everything ready by the time you get back down to South Col. And so, you know, the Sherpas, of course, your personal Sherpa who went to the summit can help you, but when you have that backup Sherpa, they do everything. They have such a fresh energy and everything. So you go there and you take off your things, and Sherpa can even help you. For those who are really, really tired, they can help you take off your crampons and get you into the tents and bring soup and a water or tea immediately. And so good, you can just relax in the tent and just memorize your summit, and it's just awesome. And having a backup Sherpa, I found a very, very, very important and very nice idea.
Yeah,
and,
I know. It's like you think about how hard it is for anyone to climb Everest, and then you think these guys are not only climbing Everest with you themselves, they're also there to help you and work and support you, and just, you know, imagine having to do that and then making a cup of tea. So that's awesome. Thanks, Tendi. And now, Rex, I want to ask you, you actually had a little bit of an issue on this stretch. You were climbing in the dark. What happened?
Yeah, so we left camp, as Mike said, about 1 o'clock. We were actually behind quite a few people by memory, and we were rushing to try and pass people on the way up through that section to the balcony. And for whatever reason, I knocked my goggles off my head. And so why I think I did that was, I accidentally did it, but why I think I did that is because I took my goggles off because it was dark, and I placed them on my head. And then during the climbing, whatever reason, they got knocked off. So during the whole summit bit, I had no goggles. Luckily, I had a backup pair of sunglasses that I could use when the sun came up, but they also froze up completely. And so just be really aware when you're in that section, and when you've got the adrenaline going, and it's cold and it's night, and just be aware of the small things, because the small things can add up to be big things later on the summit bit. So my descent wasn't all that fun later, and we'll talk about that in a moment.
Awesome. Cool. All right, guys, how about we move on? We want to touch quickly on, there's been so many questions about oxygen. I think it's such an important part of your summit bid. Even when we asked you what the most difficult part is, 40% of people say oxygen management. So let's just have a little bit of insight into oxygen management.
Managing your oxygen system on Everest Summit Day is vitally important. We spend a lot of time with our teams at base camp, training with the masks, running through how to troubleshoot, so that when our teams get up there, it's second nature using these masks. Your oxygen system can freeze. Sometimes those valves inside the mask, if you take your mask off, can freeze. Sometimes you can get icicles on the outside of your mask due to the extreme temperatures. So knowing how to troubleshoot and knowing how to manage that is super important. Troubleshooting the oxygen mask and other things on Summit Day is really the biggest benefit to having an experienced guide and an experienced guide service behind you. We typically have extra masks and regulators within our teams very close at hand at any point. So if there are failures with the oxygen system, the mask, the regulators, the bottle, we've got ways to manage that. We're ready for any contingency. And of course, we've got extra oxygen bottles on Summit Day in case some fail on us, or we just need extra oxygen for the team. We try and plan for all those contingencies, but being very familiar with your oxygen system and knowing how to troubleshoot that system is absolutely crucial for Summit Day.
Yeah, just getting that time practicing at base camp with the guides is so important. But the other thing that we also get asked about a lot is flow rates and how much oxygen do you need?
Generally, you're running about 3 liters per minute on your oxygen system on Everest Summit Day. And that might vary a bit. If you're moving well, you can turn it up a little bit down. It depends on how much oxygen you have, how many bottles you have allotted for that summit day. At 3 liters a minute, a typical oxygen bottle will last you about 6 hours. And if you have extra oxygen, if you have more oxygen bottles, you may be able to run 4 or 5 liters a minute. Typically, we don't see people running any more than that. If you're on the lower side of oxygen bottles, you might run 2.5 liters a minute, but generally 3 liters a minute is a good solid flow rate. That combined with these new oxygen masks that we have, really efficient, it'll get you to the top and back down safely. When you're sleeping, you don't need such a high flow rate. Your body is using less oxygen, so you may run a 0.5 liter to 1 liter a minute while sleeping. And down below the self-call, down below Everest Summit Day, you might run a lower flow rate as well, anywhere from 2.5 liters a minute, maybe up to 3 liters a minute. We typically start using oxygen on the Lhotse face at Camp 3. We'll sleep on a low flow rate and then continue on up from there through the self-call and beyond.
So hopefully that's answered some of your questions about oxygen. So we're now about to head to the summit and the last stretch before the summit. Let's check it out.
The route from the Cell Summit to the summit is an absolutely beautiful stretch of climbing. Huge exposure, you're on a knife edge ridge, pretty tough to pass there. But a lot of times when you come up over the Cell Summit, you start to get a bit of a breeze there. So you need to be really careful. That wind combined with the cold temperatures can start to freeze your oxygen mask. It can freeze your eyes if you don't have eye protection on. You start to freeze your cornea, so you need to be aware of that. But just try and enjoy that stretch of climbing. It's absolutely beautiful climbing. It takes about an hour to an hour and a half to get from the Cell Summit to the Hillary Step. The Hillary Step is kind of your last big obstacle. And the Hillary Step is changed. I get this question a lot. It used to be a vertical rock pitch, and you'd kind of dogleg to the left around this rock once you hit the top. And we believe that in 2015, during the earthquake, it shook that rock loose, and that rock is now gone. So it's made it a much easier snow slope. It's still steep, it's still a challenge, but it's not quite the Hillary step that we used to know. And that's great because it makes it easier moving through that section. There's more room to pass. It's not quite as exposed, but the Hillary step is absolutely changed. Once you get past the Hillary step, it's really only about 20 minutes of pretty moderate terrain to the summit. But yeah, generally 2 to 3 hours from the South Summit to the summit. Beautiful climbing. The sun will be coming up then, starting to warm things up a bit. And you know, just enjoy the climbing, enjoy the view. Absolutely beautiful stretch of climbing.
Awesome. So we're getting up to the pointy end of town, but before we quite celebrate, let's have a quick discussion of that final leg up to the summit. You know, Alan, I'd love to throw to you first. And can you remember and tell us what that exposure was like on that Cornice Traverse? What does it feel like up there?
I have no idea.
Can't remember.
We were very fast in 2011, and I was the 4th person to summit that day from the south side. And so we actually crossed the Cornice Traverse in the dark. We summited at 5 a.m. Took us 7 hours to get up. And then coming back down, as I came down the Hillary step, this is 2011, so my oxygen mask froze. And Kami, the Sherpa I was climbing with, I came down the Hillary step. I just pointed to my mask, and he came over with a fist and just bam, just knocked me, and just all this ice blew away, and I could breathe again. Oh. So I think I was preoccupied with that when I went back across the Cornice Traverse. So honestly, I have no idea.
All right, cool. Well, let's ask Rex. Rex, you would have been, the sun would have been up for you. You stood on top at 8:45 in the morning. I remember it very well. Do you remember what that kind of exposure felt like?
You know, coming across the South Summit, I was surprised. The view's amazing. The sun was rising. It was beautiful. We had some weather down below us that was well below us, so it wasn't a factor. But when we got to the South Summit, I was like, you have to go down. This is ridiculous. We've been working our butts off to get up this mountain, and then you have to take like 10 steps back down, and it just felt like, oh, mate, it was like, what am I doing? And then across the summit ridge, the exposure, to be honest, is not that bad. If you're used to rock climbing or if you do some, you know, general mountaineering, I don't think it's that bad. But when you get to the Hillary step, and now it has changed slightly since I was up there, that's when you can see straight down the north face of Everest and back into Nepal on the other side, and you're just in this amazing spot. And you're also in this spot where you're kind of getting to the point where you know it's getting close. And yeah, you could turn around there, but realistically, I guess the tiredness, the frustration of putting one foot in front of the other goes away, and and the emotion changes, and you're like, I'm going and I'm charging and I'm going to get to the top of Mount Everest, and this is going to be awesome. So
nice.
I mean, that was my experience. It was tough though. The Hillary step for me, getting above the Hillary step, was the turning point. And it was very mentally challenging at that point, and just dig deep at that point, you know, with the right.
Yeah, and the bit that you're talking about is actually the picture on the screen. That just behind that discussion is a guy about to go down those 10 steps. That's right? That's what you're talking about, right? That little downhill bit.
You drop down there and you're like, what the heck, man? I'm climbing a mountain. I don't want to go downhill. I'm going uphill. I'm going up the biggest mountain in the world. But it's also interesting in my experience getting to that point, the South Summit, for the first time, you see the true summit of Mount Everest right across that ridge. And that's for the first time that you see it in pretty much the whole expedition. And so a new wave of passion, motivation, energy comes over you. And if the weather's right and the conditions are good, you know it's on. Let's get across this summit ridge. Let's get up the Hillary step safely, and let's stand on the top of the world.
Awesome. And Tendi, you know, you've done it 13 times. You've done it when the Hillary step is there, and then the Hillary step has changed. You know, what is your opinion of how difficult the Hillary step is now?
Yes, until 2014, the Hillary step used to be one of the tough on your summit push. I remember that like every single time I've been there, and the Hillary step is the place where you face a lot of traffic as well, because people finally gets to that point, and then suddenly, because of that hard rocky part, people start to get slow there, and as there is no place to skip or cross the people, people get traffic and that section. So when I went back there again, like in 2018 on my summit day, I was actually quite surprised to see Hillary Step, the new face of Hillary Step. I didn't expect that would be quite easy. So I doubt that there was a big part of rock which was missing actually, as I think it's definitely from the 2015 earthquake in Nepal and Himalaya. So actually Hillary Step has got a fairly easy now. You don't have to go through that rocky sections. You don't have to, there's a rock where you have to kind of sit on it before you cross that, and as if you are riding a horse. And now you no longer need to do that, and you just keep going. And of course it changed the future of that. That sort of changes sometime every year, but it's a lot more easier than crossing on that rock before. So I love the new Hillary Step.
I just got a funny comment from Wolf in the chat saying, I think that CTSS removed the rock on the Hillary Step. we didn't, but I'm glad that you think we've got that kind of power on the mountain. Awesome. So what do you guys reckon? Should we head off onto the summit? Let's take a look. Oh no, actually no, I lied. Before we get there, I've got another little slide for you. Now I have to figure out how to go back. 1 second. I knew there would be one little thing. We've actually got a little bit on traffic because everyone always asks us about those crowds and passing people. So let's take a little insight into traffic and crowds.
Traffic can be a big issue on Summit Day. I'm sure some of you have seen the images of people lined up trying to get past the Hillary Step. And again, here it's important to be prepared. There are a lot of things you can do to avoid traffic on Summit Day. Number one, you can pick your Summit Day wisely. You can try and go when there are less teams going for the summit. And number two, even if it is crowded on Summit Day, you can leave at a time that'll allow you to navigate those other teams. So there's a lot you can do in advance. We find that the biggest delays are typically on the summit ridge, the Cornice Traverse, and then getting through the Hillary Step. So knowing how to pass effectively there, using those two safeties to stay clipped in and pass people, move efficiently through there is crucial. If you do get into traffic, it's really important to just stay patient. You can even turn down your oxygen system a little bit to conserve oxygen, but just stay patient. You'll get through it. If the weather's good, it's not a big deal. You'll still tag the summit and make it back down.
Awesome, cool. Let's stand on top.
Standing on top of Mount Everest is an absolutely surreal experience, and you need to try to appreciate the magnitude of where you are. Look to the north into the plains of Tibet, look to the south back behind you, all the peaks down below you that are much lower than you are. But you don't want to spend too much time on top. The amount of time you spend on top really depends on a lot of factors: how you're feeling, how crowded it is, what the weather's doing. If you're feeling good, you might spend 45 minutes, an hour on the summit, take some time to get some food and water, grab some photos, and then get out of there. But if it's really crowded, or if the weather's moving in, or if it's really cold and windy, you'll want to get out of there pretty quick. Remember, when you're at the summit, you're only halfway there. You've got a lot of dangerous terrain to get down to get back to safety. So don't forget that. Don't turn your brain off. Stay focused on what you're doing and head down as quickly as you safely can. 15 minutes on top might be the bare minimum to take some photos, get some food and water, rest the legs a little bit, and head down. But in general, don't spend too much time on top. You've still got a lot of climbing to go once you're on the summit.
Awesome. So summiting, lots of people have asked about that kind of that amazing feeling. Alan, you know, it took you a couple of attempts. What was it like when you finally stood on top?
You know, I guess if I could just say one word, it would be humbling. I felt immense gratitude. And for me, I was climbing for a purpose. And I talk about this a lot, that I had this beautiful intersection in my life of passion and purpose. My passion being mountain climbing and my purpose being an Alzheimer's advocate. My mom, Ida, died from Alzheimer's in 2009. And I think one of the reasons that I turned around in 2002, 3, and 8 was that I didn't have this overriding reason that, you know, 1,000 reasons to turn around, one to keep going. In 2011, I was going to stand on top of Mount Everest to raise money for Alzheimer's research and to honor my mom and my 4 aunts who have also died from Alzheimer's. So when I got up there, I think I appreciated it more because I had not made it 3 previous times. So it was a moment of immense gratitude. I felt very happy, but also tears just flowed down my face.
Yeah, amazing. How amazing. Wow. And Rex, how did you feel? You came up there and set a world record. That's actually a little picture of you. There's that nepotism coming through. There's a picture of you on the summit back in 2005. And how was it for you? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was up there. You know, when I stood on the summit, it's an amazing feeling. Don't get me wrong, like you've got the world beneath your feet, and it's a dream that you've dreamed of for many years. For me, I'd held that dream since I was about 16 years old, and I felt amazing. But I was like, I'm up here now, and I'm in really bad winds. We didn't have a great summit day. It was really windy and very, very cold. I lost my goggles, and I was like, I'm up here now. I just want to get the hell out of here. I want to get back down, and we can celebrate this success when we're back down safely in the South Col, and even better, safely in base camp. So the summit for me was an amazing moment, but it also genuinely knew that I was in the most exposed position we can possibly be in. So we only spent 10 minutes on the top, got a quick couple of shots, video footage, and then started heading back down. Because the celebration, that's in base camp where my sister was waiting for me.
With a cold beer. And Tendi, I mean, Tendi, you've done it 13 times. Like, does the summit become routine? Does it get old, or is it the same every time? I mean, is it even still hard for you?
Yes, Caroline, especially first summit of Everest was always unforgettable. You know, like for everybody, when you get there for the first time, you are just amazed to be there. Of course, after my first summit of Everest back in 2004, every single summit I've done till now has been always special. Now I enjoy my summit. You know, when I get there with my clients, I really enjoy the moment when I can see my client achieve that dream as well. And I really enjoy and celebrate that moment with my clients. And that's every year, that's a unique part for me of summiting Everest.
Awesome. So amazing. And Mike, do you want to add anything there about, you know, the client standing on top, what they still need to keep in mind when they are standing on top?
Yeah, I just kind of reiterate what Rex was saying. There's still a lot of climbing down below you. And, you know, you have that adrenaline on the way up, especially once you reach the cell summit, you can see the Hillary step there, you know, you're close. And then that adrenaline starts to fade on the way down, and, you know, the legs get heavy. And it's just, you know, I find that one of the hardest stretches of the day is just getting back down, because you're so exhausted, and that adrenaline isn't there anymore. So you need to stay focused, you need to stay safe, and just, you know, dot your I's and cross your T's, and make sure you make it down safely.
And that is a big point of the climb, you know, often that people kind of don't talk about the descent. So we do have a little video for you guys on the descent.
When you leave the summit of Everest, you've still got a lot of steep technical terrain to navigate, so don't let your guard down. You've got a long way to go. The descent generally takes about half as much time to get back to the South Col as it took you to get to the summit. So if you were 8 hours to the summit, you might be 4 hours back to the South Col. Hopefully the sun's come up and it's starting to warm things up a bit, but you can't.
Oh, I'm sorry. 1 second.
When you leave technical terrain to navigate, so don't let your guard down. You've got a long way to go. The descent generally takes about half as much time to get back to the South Col as it took you to get to the summit. So if you were 8 hours to the summit, you might be 4 hours back to the South Col. Hopefully the sun's come up and it's starting to warm things up a bit, but you can't let your guard down. A lot of people ask me, should I spend a night at the South Col or should I head all the way back down to Camp 2? And that really depends on how you're feeling and what the weather's doing. If the weather's good and you're feeling tired, it's not worth risking injuring yourself trying to get down the Lhotse face to Camp 2. You can sleep on oxygen at Camp 4, allow your body to rest and head back down the next day when you're feeling safer. That being said, if you're feeling good and the weather's good, you can head all the way back down to Camp 2. It might be that you spend 3 or 4 hours at the South Col, you get a nap, you eat some food, you drink some water, and you're feeling better. Then you head down to Camp 2. That's great. So you could go from the summit to the South Col in 4 hours, back down to Camp 2 in another 5 hours. So about a day to get down to Camp 2 and then another day to get down to base camp. Typically, after you reach Camp 2 that next morning, you'll get up nice and early, head down through the icefall before it warms up to try and reach base camp by about 10 a.m. So all told, it's about 2 days from the summit back down to base camp. Once you're back at base camp, you can fully enjoy your Everest success. Typically, people want to get out of base camp pretty quickly. You have two options. You can either trek down the valley 3 days and really kind of take in that success and enjoy it and celebrate it on your way out, or you can jump on a helicopter back to Kathmandu. I'd say 50% of climbers do each. Some jump on a helicopter, some trek back down the valley. But either way, it's super important to appreciate what you've done, appreciate your accomplishment, and take the time to enjoy that with your fellow climbers. And for me, there's nothing more powerful than trekking back down that valley, knowing that I've spent 2 months on Everest and I've been successful. It's a very powerful feeling, and make sure you take it in and you appreciate that.
Yeah, it's so important just letting that achievement and that time consolidate and just really taking it in and doing the trek down. So, but on descent, Rex, you have a bit of a story. So you lost your goggles on the way up. They fell off your head. You summited in sunglasses. What happened on the descent for you?
My sunglasses froze up on the summit because they weren't fitted to the oxygen system. So I only fitted my goggles around the oxygen system and they were sorted, but I lost those. So my glasses froze. So I put my glasses above my head. You probably may have seen that in the summit photo there. And I descended without glasses. As a result, as we all probably know, being mountaineers and enthusiasts in mountains, you get snowblind. Well, I started to get snowblind, but that wasn't the worst part about it because my eye was exposed to the freezing winds, and we had probably negative 35, 40 degree temperatures, and then we had wind chill on top of that, and so my eyeball actually froze itself open. So I had an eyeball that was frozen, and I went snowblind on the way back down. And my oxygen system froze up as well. So kind of coming down off the balcony into that triangle and onto the South Col was actually the hardest section of the climb for me. I was losing vision, didn't have my oxygen system working properly. And at that point in time, you're really relying on people like Tendi, on your Sherpas that are guiding you and being there for you. I had a beautiful Sherpa called Sona, and he helped me out, and also my climbing partner Ed. Teamwork and trust up there is critical to your success, and so I can't stress enough paying attention to the very small details, because small things can add up to a big thing, and then having the right team of people around you will keep you safe, and making sure, of course, you pick the right expedition team.
And your eyeball did defrost and now you're fine, aren't you?
Yeah, I can see perfectly out of my eyes. I'm very lucky. And yeah, and I had frostbite on my nose, my cheeks, and a couple of fingers. The only other thing I'd say on summit day, just be really aware of big mittens, right? If you've got big mittens and taking them off to clip lines, you've got direct contact with metal. That's potentially a bad thing and can give you frostbite very quickly. So those little systems that Mike will go through with you in base camp are critical to your success. Don't underestimate that, and making sure you have your componentry right before going up into the death zone.
Nice. And talking of that, guys, we are going to do a gear and training session next week, same place, same time, on gear. So we will go into those kind of little nuances there. Mike, compared to the ascent, how physically demanding do you think the descent is? How hazardous is that compared to the ascent?
Yeah, for me, it's the hardest part of the day. And I kind of mentioned that previously. That adrenaline is gone and you just need to get back down to the self-call. And it's just so physically exhausting. Often you haven't eaten enough calories. You haven't drank enough throughout the day. And I find that, just staying safe and moving slowly will get you there, but you're just absolutely exhausted. Your legs are starting to get really tired, and especially that last stretch, the last hour or so into the self-call is always a very difficult one. So, with my clients, about half the time I've stayed at the self-call for a night before heading down. The other half of the time I've headed all the way down to Camp 2, and it really just depends on that exhaustion level and what the weather's doing.
Definitely. And I mean, Tendi doesn't even go down. Tendi, you back it up and you go straight over to Lhotse. So I'm going to have a quick look at the Lhotse add-on and what you can do if you're really feeling ninja strong. You can actually go and tag another peak. Let's take a quick look.
Matt and Tendi on the summit of Lhotse.
Special day.
Superman Matt.
Special day.
You are Superman. In 23 hours, Matt has climbed the Everest and Lhotse. Both congratulations, Matt.
Tendi was there too, leading the way.
So good to climb with Matt. So honored to climb and share this beautiful mountain in Himalaya, Matt. Look at the mountain in Everest in the background of us. All the other beautiful mountains.
A lot of people are choosing to add Lhotse on to their Everest summit climb. Lhotse is just a shoulder peak of Mount Everest. The route of Everest and Lhotse are 90% the same. It's another 8,000 meter peak, fourth tallest mountain on Earth. But to climb Lhotse, it's just another additional 7 to 9 hours beyond Everest. So some people will climb Everest, that's the primary focus, come back down to the self-call, rest, recover. Most people, if they've been strong enough to climb Everest, they can then climb Lhotse the next day. So you wake up early, you head back down, sneak up Lhotse, and then meet your team back down at Camp 2. The routes of Everest and Lhotse are about 90% the same. To summit Lhotse off the Everest route is really just a short, steep climb up a couloir. It may take you 5 hours to get back up and a couple hours back down, but there have probably only been 40 to 50 people that have climbed both Everest and Lhotse in one go. That's why it's so highly sought after. If you've spent 2 months acclimatizing for Mount Everest summit, why not spend an extra 7 to 9 hours and tag an extra 8,000 meter peak? Generally, if people can climb Everest, they can climb Lhotse as well after a bit of rest at the self-call. So it's an option, a great option for people who want to be able to push themselves.
So Tendi, very quickly, before we head into some questions, can you tell us, what's it like doing the double header? What's it like kind of turning around and going straight back up? Is it as straightforward as we think?
Yes, this is one of my most favorite part of climbing. Both Everest and Lhotse in a one go. I really love to do this in the future as well. You know, all what we need to do is like once you climb Everest, you gotta get back down to South Col on time. I would recommend to get back to South Col before 1 p.m. so that you have plenty of time to rest all day long, while eating and while rehydrations and all that. And then so if you feel strong, you are ready to go about a midnight and a half for Lhotse summit push. And the good thing is that like when you were climbing Everest, you looking at the Lhotse right in front of you, especially on your way down from the Everest summit, and you go like, wow, that face looks pretty steep and pretty amazing. And that's how you feel when you are coming down. You are coming down from the summit of Everest, and then the next day you are on the summit of Lhotse, following the same face that you saw yesterday from the Everest. And you are looking now opposite, you are looking on this the Everest summit route, and you just get amazed to see that route that you followed just yesterday, and you feel like it's really worth it to do it. And so you can see the both route and summit of Lhotse is pretty amazing. For me, spending time on a high altitude has been always a great experience because I feel a lot more better at 8,000 meters than down in Kathmandu. I eat way better up there. I like to do it. I like to keep working there, and you just feel so great. And of course, you shouldn't spend many days up there neither. But yeah, whatever time I spend up there, I always feel so great.
I'm gonna put out a disclaimer, Climbing the Seven Summits official disclaimer, that you probably won't feel as good as Tendi at 8,000 meters and better than you do at Kathmandu, but he's someone to aspire to. I love your enthusiasm, Tendi. It never gets old. But yeah, that Lhotse add-on's a pretty cool little one. So guys, now let's head. We know that let's head into some Q&A. We don't want to hold you too long. You can, if we don't get around to all of them, we can catch up on email. We've also got a Facebook group, Climbing the Seven Summits community, where we can continue those discussions. So we had a couple of great questions coming in, but we also had some emailed questions come in before our webinar. Alan, can you tell us just a little bit about, it's that Sherpa relationship. You have an amazing relationship with the Sherpa. You've just finished the virtual Everest climb coverage, well, you're just about to, in support of them. Can you just kind of give us a little overview of how critical, for your perspective, their role is on the climb?
Well, as somebody made a comment, they're the backbone, and I have no problem in saying that a person like me that grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, would not have summited Everest without Kami Sherpa. I call him my guardian angel on the mountain. We also summited K2 together, and I went back a couple of years ago, just he and I, and we trekked around Gokyo and went to did Island Peak. And so I call his family my Nepali family, and his children call me, their grandfather, I think. I don't know why, but so the Sherpas are just unbelievably strong. I think that, there's a generational change that's happening, I think, within the Sherpa culture as more of the younger Sherpas are getting trained or going to school, boarding school in Kathmandu. The older Sherpas are passing the torch. So we have it's a different culture that's starting to emerge, but the core principles of caring and honesty and integrity they permeate the entire culture. And I just, I fell in love with Nepal, the Himalayas, but especially the Sherpa culture on my first trek to Everest Base Camp in 1997. And that love affair goes on today.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? Love affair for life with the Sherpa. They're such amazing people, as you can probably tell by Tendi. Tendi, speaking about the Sherpa, I mean, your role as a team, as the Sherpa team, is not over. Hey, all the climbers head on down the mountain, and you guys sweep the mountain clean up. Like in a average season, you probably climb the mountain twice, don't you?
Yes, Caroline, we sometimes do like the most numbers of rotation I've done to 8,000 meter was 11 times. That was
11.
11 times quite a few years ago. Carrying a loads to the last camp, going up and down and up and down. So yeah, that was the maximum time I've done. And it's like after you complete the summiting Everest, it's very important for us to make sure that our gears are all packed well and they're ready to go down, and make sure that we don't leave any trash. Of course, nowadays there is a problem that people just leave their trash. The reason why people leave trash is also because sometimes some expedition group, they leave the things up there, thinking that they will do the summit, but then they're at base camp waiting for summit push, and suddenly they run out of their time and they just leave, and so all their gears and everything is left at 8,000 meter, and it's not easy to just go quickly to South Col and get down, because you also need to have a good weather to do that. So for us, whatever we can, we try our best to try to pack everything in one time, one single push, and we try to bring those down to at least to camp 2. Then it's very easy for us to bring it from camp 2 to camp base camp. So sometimes it's hard. Sometimes we kind of cover everything in one single push. So some Sherpa carries like a double loads. In 2009, I carried 73 kg from 8,000 meter to camp 2. That was I think a little more than my weight. But
Tendi,
sometimes you have to do it.
You're a machine.
So, yeah, it's a very important to bring everything down, and I would say that we've been able to bring all the time all our own trashes and our personal gears down to base camp safely.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the Sherpa are they're still there for you even after you've left, making sure that everything is clean. And Mike, touching on that, we have a policy at Climbing the Seven Summits about leaving no trace and keeping the mountain sustainable and safe and clean into the future. Do you have anything to add there about that?
Yeah, I'd just say that that's a big part of our ethic at Climbing the Seven Summits. We want to be part of the solution, not the problem. And, I think it's great that the SPCC now, the kind of environmental oversight organization, requires everyone to bring all their trash down. And so the mountain has become cleaner. And I think that ethic is overwhelmingly the ethic of companies working on the mountain, but we always see a few companies that don't play by those rules, and it's unfortunate. We see that trash from year to year. So I think just really encouraging that ethic. This is our workplace. This is the mountain that we love. It's a spiritual mountain for the Sherpa, and we want to see it stay clean for years to come. So that's a big part of our ethic that we play by over there.
Awesome. And another question that's come in while I've got you unmuted, tell us a little bit, like people asking about the difference between, doing it on oxygen and using no-Os. If someone wants to do an ascent without oxygen, is that possible?
It absolutely is possible. I think the most important thing there is you want to have the experience before that. Maybe climb another 8,000 meter peak without oxygen to know how your body does at that extreme altitude before moving on to Everest. But it's absolutely possible. A very small percentage of people have climbed without oxygen, and it's much, much harder than climbing with oxygen. It's more dangerous. You can't keep your body as warm. A big part of what the oxygen does is allows you to stay warmer, so you don't get those cold injuries, which is really important. But it's possible. You just need to make sure you're totally prepared for it.
Yeah, and you've got those redundancies
Yep.
in place. Awesome. So before we wrap up, I'd just love to throw back to all our panelists, because it's so amazing having them join us. And I know that it's not always easy with the time zones and stuff, so we're very lucky to have them. But, before we head off and close out the session, like Alan, do you have anything that you want to add about the summit day? Is there any golden piece of advice you wish someone had given you that you could give to others, or what are your thoughts on the summit?
Yeah, 2 or 3 quick bullet points. One is that you have to be physically in Everest shape, not the best shape of your life. And somebody mentioned Training Peaks earlier, and I think those guys are great, and their programs are excellent to help you get into that shape. The second one is this mental toughness. And one of the ways you get mental toughness is by getting experience. And Mike brought this up. Ideally, before you go to Everest, you have gone to an 8,000 meter mountain before. I went to Choi Oyu before I attempted Everest. And I still didn't make it, but finding out how your body performs at altitude is really important. And the third piece of advice I'd give is that surround yourself with positive people when you're on the mountain. When you have these large groups, that actually, a lot of people will criticize it, but I think there's a benefit to that in the sense that you can pick who you want to socialize with. Base camp and climbing is a very intimate time. That's one of the reasons why this virus was so deadly. If it had happened, a lot of people went to base camp. It's so intimate, the dining tents, the sleeping tents, and but more importantly is the social dynamics. And so, one of the questions was, can you get any rest at the South Col? And do you have any advice? My best advice is that have a really good tent mate. Have somebody that you enjoy being around, that you can have decent conversations with, and most important, has a sense of humor and will give you support whenever you hit the wall at any time during the expedition. And you can hit the wall at base camp, much less on the Southeast Ridge.
Amazing. Great. Such good advice there. There's some real gems. Tendi, you've done it a few times before. What are your kind of golden pieces of advice quickly?
Yeah, I think you're, to dream climbing Everest or other 8,000 meter peaks in Nepal or Himalaya. I think your training just begins from your room, from your house. You can start off training from a very basic level to like a normal introductory training on a glacier near your hometown. And then later, make sure you do at least a 6,000 meter peaks if that fits to you there. Otherwise, I would obviously recommend to climb a 8,000 meter peak that before you climb Everest, because that will make you a lot more easy. We have some friends who has done that, and I can see how they felt on Everest, when they have already the 8,000 meter experience. Yeah, and then once you have all this training, one of the most important thing is also to keep your mind really patient. Not always work with your mind and not be like, okay, rush or something like that. So you always got to be patient. When there's bad weather, you just say, hey, the better days is gonna come for us. So you just wait, keep drinking, take care of yourself, and every single day it's your summit. Every single moment is a summit. So every single day count, every single hours or seconds and minutes count. So make sure you enjoy that, and as long as you take care very well of yourself every day, then finally you will achieve the goal to reach the summit of Everest. And start your training right from your home.
Great advice there. And Rex, have you got anything that you want to add as we round up?
Very quickly, I think Alan and Tendi just have so much experience that was so perfect in what they said. But I'd say just go steady, go slow. So often people rush the summit bit and they rush the mountain. And realistically, you're on Everest, you're going to be on there for probably maybe 2.5 months. So just go slow, enjoy the experience, and on summit morning, don't rush out of the gate. There may be crowds around and adrenaline's pumping, but you've got a long summit day ahead and you've got to pace yourself, and because you got to get all the way to the top of the mountain and you got to get all the way back down. So play it cool, as Tendi said. If there's a storm and stuff like that, chill, enjoy yourself, look after yourself, and remember, you're climbing Mount Everest. It's not all going to be easy.
Yeah, beautiful advice. So guys, we're going to wrap up there. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to our panelists for coming. It's amazing. Next week, we're going to be here, same place, same time, doing gear and training. Also, if you've enjoyed today, we are raising money for the Sherpa. I think we're up to date through Tiger of the Snows Fund, raised over $11,000. So that's pretty awesome. So thank you so much. If you do have more questions, more discussion that you want to keep having, the Facebook group, Climbing the Seven Summits community, is a great place to turn to. We're starting to build a little bit there. So please jump on and join. And also you may have to register for next week if you haven't already done so. So please do that. And hopefully, if my technology is right, you'll head to a feedback form now. It'd be awesome to get your feedback. We've had a lot of value putting this together for you. It'd be great to get that feedback so that we can improve wherever possible. So guys, thank you again so much for joining us. Thanks for all of our panelists, and wherever you are in the world, stay safe, stay happy, and keep dreaming of those mountains because they're beautiful and they change us and they make us better people. So until next week, we will see you later. Okay, now I have to actually leave. This is the hardest part, right? Because I have to stop sharing my screen, head out, and actually leave the meeting. Cheers, guys. Bye.